So we have a number of senior managers that have come out from across Canada. So we have Tyler, the president of the Ontario Agri-Food Technologies. We have Johannes, the president of Innovation Enterprise at University of Saskatchewan, and Selena, the manager of innovation in the Ministry of Agriculture in British Columbia. So one thing that I would like to do, first, I'm Brandon Lee. I'm the Consul General of Canada to California and Hawaii, and it's probably one of the best diplomatic postings you can have in the world. And so I'm basically the Canada's ambassador to the Silicon Valley. So, and this year is Canada's 150th birthday. So it's our sesquicentennial birthday. And with our government under Justin Trudeau, we are creating a nation of innovation. And in this way, we've always had extremely strong research and academic engineering talent, scientific talent, and we're turning this into creating Canada as a global innovation powerhouse. So what we're doing, for example, we've aligned federal government at all levels, federal, provincial, municipal, with academia, and we're working together to focus upon, we're doing something very un-Canadian. We're focusing on certain superclusters to strengthen them globally. So one of them, of course, is AgTech and agriculture. So we're focusing on sectors where we have already a natural global strength. So when it comes to agriculture, maybe many of you know actually, but Canada is the largest lentil producer in the world. Canada is a superpower in mustard. If you look at mustard, 75 to 80% of all mustard globally is produced in Canada. And so already having this deep agricultural expertise, we're now turning and bringing innovation and our technical talent and bridging that into AgTech. So we have almost $130 million within the agricultural supercluster that we're focusing upon. So I'll ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and give a little bit on what each of their provinces are doing within AgTech. Thank you. Tyler.
Thank you. Hooray for mustard. Actually, just having met Brandon for the first time and realizing what his job is, I'm thinking of putting in an application. So that would be fun. And having been here for the first time, what an incredible experience. First off, thank you for sticking around for whoever's out in the audience still. This is a long day of 4 for a lot of us. I think it was kind of my most confusing thing of the day was what to wear. I mean, should I be casual or should I be formal? So I kind of did a little bit of both, some jeans on the bottom. It's kind of like a mullet. Does anybody know what a mullet is? Jeans on the bottom and the business at the top. And the other thing too is what should we do in the panel? Should we stand like the Danes or do a little war dance like the Kiwis before we start out? I was trying to convince our group that we'd all sit in a circle and be very, very communal and campy like Canadians can be.
We could hold hands.
We could sing Kumbaya afterwards too, or the national anthem or something. But so you guys all endured all of my questions throughout this event, and thank you. Probably a bunch of you still wonder what I do. My role is to connect, so I work with probably anywhere from 50 to 100 companies a year that are working in AgTech, and my goal is to get them viable on a global commercial scale. Most of our countries are somewhat saturated. You eat more beef, you eat less chicken, or you use somebody's technology than you use less of your own. And so it was kind of a really neat opportunity for me to be here, especially in well done Klaus and team, to be in the valley. First off, you did a good job at making us feel like farmers, getting up very early all the time. That was pretty awesome. But the contacts and the ideas was definitely the most powerful thing for me coming out of this trip. And realizing that we all suffer from the same problems, I guess. It's not that Silicon Valley does it way better than anybody else. I mean, they've got some advantages and we're sitting in one. It's just that we all need to get our best technologies to market. We all need access to capital. We all need to learn what the farmer needs. We can't duplicate, and time is an issue. the quality of people we're here, I feel, are the kinds of people that are really able to change this game. So my talk isn't necessarily about Canada right now. It's just kind of observations in the global sense of what we really need to do. So I hope you're all going to go home and really follow up on these connections, and I hope you're going to take some action. I mean, I've challenged the Danes to make sure that they host one of these events in their country, because there's fascinating technology going on there. And the New Zealanders are going to come to Ontario and educate our dairy system what they do, and we'll see what we can incorporate, and we'll challenge them with our best technology too, to see which one is actually the best. And I think that's really important, because there's great stuff going on here, but there's great stuff going on everywhere. And so getting out of the bubble, let's say, and all the number of airplanes that fly in and out of here, you might think we're going to pop that bubble someday. But in the meantime, all those airplanes are actually making Canada warmer, which is really quite nice. And we can shed our Canada Goose jacket and get on with doing more agriculture, I suppose. But anyway, to me, we're instead of trying to advance our region, I would prefer to try and advance our globe. Everybody has to think globally in this fight of ours, this fight against some of the things that we're doing wrong in this world. And like Elon Musk puts it, to quote somebody from this area, certain things have to happen for the future to be good. And I don't know how many of you have kids, you probably have grandkids, but we got to do that quickly. And so if we're not identifying the best and investing in the best and accelerating the best, then we're wasting time and money. So that's my little bit of what I think we need to do. Ag is number one in terms of an industry in our country, and it's number one in terms of the industry in a lot of countries here. But there's such a diversity in agriculture, in the social culture of and I mean, the word is in the word, it's agriculture, socially, business-wise, and otherwise. And I think the investment culture has to change too. And so again, using an analogy, because I like analogies, if you're trying to start an infection, you can do an epidemic, and you can drop a lot of virus in San Francisco, and you can start an epidemic. But if you want it to be a pandemic, you got to drop a lot of virus in a whole bunch of places. And so to really do that, and the virus in this case is money. So get that money to work. There's a ton of opportunity around the world. We've all discovered it here to make a lot of money outside of Silicon Valley or your own bubbles that you're maybe trying to create. So to me, it's a puzzle. It's a global puzzle, and we're all going to play a role and fit our pieces together. And again, you'll notice that I'm focusing on collaboration, because that's what I do. So in terms of Canada, I'm trying to articulate that we're also an untapped resource. We've got tons of opportunity. Certain things that we do very well. I mean, Steve, if he's still here, I was inspired by Steve from New Zealand, who articulated the need to invest in pre-venture level stuff, and that's what I'm trying to motivate in Canada as well, is a pre-venture sized fund in the $500,000 to $5 million range, quick impact, invest in 2 to 4 of the best technologies a year kind of thing. We don't have that. So what we do really well is we do very good invention, like a lot of you. We innovate pretty well. We get that invention into commercialization, but we don't grow that, or we don't accelerate that very well. So there's a really untapped opportunity in our country, I think, to invest in that early stage innovation before it gets to big company. To that note, I've had conversations with OMERS, which is a $100 billion pension fund. They're interested in agriculture, and they said, yeah, we'd love to invest in Canada as long as it includes US, Australia, New Zealand, Israel, and blah, 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 blah. So it's not just a Canada thing, which is good. And our banks have recently put a $1 billion fund together as well to invest in innovation, to Brandon's comment. So there are a lot of opportunities that are really starting. University of Guelph just got $77 million towards precision agriculture. I mean, that's not an insignificant investment in terms of advancing our ability to do the things that we're all trying to do. So you can tell I'm a bit of an idealistic enabler, but I'm also a practical farmer. I did come from a farm. I understand what they need. And I'm agnostic to the winners. I don't care where you come from. I just care that you get to the finish line quickly. We've got strength and we've got weakness, and I mentioned a few of those, but one of the things that we do have is we have a heck of a lot of land. And we've actually got more land that we can open up. Millions and millions of acres that are going to become available for farming. So unlike a lot of other people, we actually have that resource and a bit of a luxury. We've got very efficient R&D. We've got good governance and programming, and these guys will talk to that. And we've got strength in the bioeconomy because we have so much biomass. I mean, 60% of the world's soft lumber or something like that. So just to finish up, do I have a minute?
Yeah.
Just to finish up, sorry, I can babble on forever. In terms of technology, just 20 seconds. If you're interested in chickens, we're developing a technology to identify the sex and fertility of a chicken on day of lay. So 50,000 eggs an hour will go under a light, and they'll know if it's male, female, fertile or not. The whole world needs that technology. It's the world's best as far as I know. It should be ready this year. Needs investment, by the way. Dry Still is a company that's figured out how to distill water at 30 degrees instead of 100 degrees. So 80% less water, 50% less energy. They just got announced as one of the top 10 companies, the hottest global chemistry tech companies from AkzoNobel, whatever that is in Europe, which is a good accolade. Competitive Green Technologies works with Tesla, Volkswagen, Ford, Lego, BASF, Club Coffee, Starbucks, and those kinds of companies. It's a 17-person company that developed the first compostable coffee pod, but the other companies, obviously car companies, they develop bioplastics that are 15% lighter and 18% more efficient in terms of molding time, and they use less heat, and they're more functional. I mean, these are bio products now that are competing on price, performance, and productivity. Protein's easy. It develops proteins, highly complex proteins for the pharma industry, tethered to rice starch granules out of the University of Ottawa. Brand new company that can do things about 1,000 times cheaper than fermentation. Great technology. And the last one, and I can't say this in a room full of farmers because they'll kind of laugh me out of the room, but this company called Upgrains is a couple of young kids from Kazakhstan who are going to university right now trying to develop their father's technology from Kazakhstan that he couldn't do on his own. And in 100,000 acres of field trial on wheat, several thousand on corn, and a couple on rice, and a lot of other plants, varieties as well, it's a seed pretreatment technology that's shown 30 to 40% productivity gains. We're trying to validate that because I don't believe it either until I see the actual results. But if that's the case, this is where Canada's AgTech is really going to make a difference in the developing world. If we were 100% perfect in terms of greenhouse gas, we'd have a 0.2% effect on the global greenhouse gas. So getting better is good for us, but we got to get that technology into the hands of the developing world. And I think those kinds of things are so exciting. You're all doing it. Come to Canada and invest if you want, and if you want my card, I'm around.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Johannes.
So does it work? Yeah. I'm a pretty new or young Canadian. I moved from the apparently less happy Sweden to Canada about 2 years ago. And what attracted me to Canada really, a lot of what Tyler said here are lots of opportunities. Saskatchewan and Saskatoon, where I work, is not very well known outside Canada. But back to Brandon's point, 99% of the lentils are produced in Saskatchewan. And also the vast majority of oats, wheat, flax are produced in Saskatchewan, but hardly anyone knows about that. And a big part played the university. And generally, all over the world, we can see that universities are untapped, uncapitalized sources and resources for new ventures. So with the UFS, the University of Saskatchewan has several national facilities, like the only synchrotron in Canada, the Canadian Light Source, the Crop Development Center, which actually commercialized over 400 new crop varieties the last 10, 15 years or so, and has now attracted big funding for new, really needed research programs, international big ones. One is the Global Institute for Food Security, and the other one is the Global Institute for Water Security, with hundreds and hundreds of partners, commercial partners, industries, as well as universities all over the globe. And those programs are funded with, I think, about $250 million in cash, and then they're matched with other parts. So we can expect a lot happening. And then we need that infrastructure, we need the tools, and especially the people to turn those ideas, the new research results, into solutions. So coming back to universities, I strongly believe that universities need to become much more entrepreneurial. before coming to Canada, I co-founded companies in Sweden. I raised capital, invested seed capital in university-based ventures in Sweden. And what is an entrepreneurial university? Well, it means that universities need to take on risk. It means that universities need to be able to spot opportunities, to create opportunities, and seize opportunities. Invite businesses and capital investors open for business. Develop those ideas pretty early, and that's why we're here too. And I think what we see in all over Canada, from the east to the west, are that universities become much more entrepreneurial. It's not just licensing, trying to find a new licensee, but also creating startup companies. Tyler mentioned a few examples. There are many more examples, but it's still untapped. There's a huge potential which is untapped, which is not capitalized. A great example is the company Indigo Agriculture, which is based in Massachusetts now. Big part of their success is based on technology developed by researchers at the University of Saskatchewan. They focus on microbial technology, the microbes that sit inside the plants, and find out which ones of those microbes actually help plants to grow faster, better, be more healthy, more resistant. So West Texas cotton yield has been improved by 10% using their technology. That's quite a big number just in a few years now. And they were able to raise a lot of capital. I think in total they're up to $200 million now. They just closed a Series C round with about $100 million. So there are definitely lots of opportunities. And last but not least, what Canada has to offer and Saskatchewan has to offer are many farmers that are willing and open to new technologies, to test out new technologies, to try them in the field and see how they work, if they work.
Thank you, excellent. Yeah, thank you. And Selena?
So I can see that they are wheeling in some food and presumably some drink that goes along with that. So I'll keep it short. Thank you so much to Brandon for inviting us, Province of British Columbia, to join you on this panel. Really excited about this opportunity to make the foray into Silicon Valley. And I should mention that we're actually geographically closer to this area than we are to our own capital in Ottawa. So much better flight for doing business. So in British Columbia, we're centered around an amazing technology hub, which is the city of Vancouver. I have to just say that Vancouver is a pretty amazing place to live and work, and if anyone hasn't been there, we'd welcome you with open arms. We're also home to one of the most intensive agricultural regions in the country. That's the Fraser Valley. So we're a huge producer of high bush blueberries, a lot of different types of poultry products, and some really neat health food products as well from our value-added processing industry. So we've got these two great sectors, and we see there's this potential for the symbiotic relationship between that ag industry and that tech industry to create something new, and that's what we see as our emerging agri-tech industry, which has about 60 innovative companies that are doing some pretty amazing stuff that's going to solve those big questions. BC, which is British Columbia, like the rest of Canada, is really positioned and focused on climate leadership. And AgTech is a really key component of that climate leadership, looking at how are we going to make sure our sector remains resilient throughout the changing climate? How are we going to meet the demands of the people that care a lot more about the farm to fork conversation than they have in the past? And that's some of the niche areas that our AgTech companies are focusing in on. So I do have a list with me. It's about 50 or so if anyone's interested in finding out about specifics. But I thought what I'd just talk a little bit about is what we see as our role as government at the provincial level. And that is really to get these companies started. So Canada, I think Brandon alluded to, we're really good at startup culture. We get people out of the universities, out of the lab bench, and get them into their little companies. But where we need help is in the scale up. And that's where the cluster model that Brandon talked about is really going to help make some of these companies a bit more global. And that's not only in their ability, but in their thinking. BC sort of tends to have this mentality that you get, 5 or 10 customers and you're able to sustain yourself as a small business. So our role as government is really encouraging them to be ambitious. Recently Justin Trudeau's been given advice by an economic advisor that we need to be ambitious. So we're getting everything lined up and see the partnership with folks down in this part of the world as key to that. One of the things that we can do for other tech companies as well is something we've done in BC. It's encouraging people from other areas, whether it be clean tech, pharmaceuticals, or just high tech in general, to look at the ag opportunity and consider it as a market with significant potential. So something we did this year was we went out to the sector and asked them what some of the market opportunities would be. What kind of a technology would you buy? And then took that information back to companies and got them to develop niche areas in that regard. We have a standing innovation program. Of course, the role of government is to provide government funding, and I know it's not always a lot, but it can help companies get started, so it's a good thing. And then we have an advanced network of accelerators in BC, and that actually includes 2 accelerators that are specifically focused on AgTech. So really putting a lot of energy into the sector, and it's very validating and comforting to come down here and see that others are doing the same. One other thing I'll mention is, I've talked a little bit about what we're doing for our own companies, but what we can do for other companies is we really provide a living lab environment. BC is incredibly diverse. We have over 200 land-based commodities and 100 commodities from the sea. And while sometimes that doesn't help us in meeting supply demands around the world because we don't have a whole lot of any one particular thing, it's an incredible advantage when it comes to developing and deploying technology. So you could come to BC, try things out across a variety of geographies, a variety of different types of weather, and you have a lot of support in terms of academia and commercialization around the province. So we're really poised to grow our companies. We're really poised to collaborate with other people that are interested from an investment standpoint or an innovation exchange standpoint. And hopefully, our valley, which is the Fraser Valley, will become sort of the Silicon Valley of AgTech in the not too distant future.
Perfect, thank you. So you can hear that one of our strengths in Canada is diversity, and we believe in international trade and partnership. So for all you investors and VCs in the room, we are open for co-investment. For entrepreneurs and investors, we have world-class talent, and we're looking forward to partnering and building a better tomorrow. So we have a few minutes for questions. We were very pithy to have a bit of a discussion together, and of course we're available afterwards. Over there, maybe.
Thank you. I was wondering just about, have there been any success stories coming out of Canada in the last little while? If you could talk about that.
That's a great question. Well, I have a few here. And if you've mentioned a few, and if you can get, and you had mentioned one as well, but Resin from New Brunswick just had a big round raised from Monsanto. They do drones in agriculture and predictive analysis. So that's a great win for us. Farmer's Edge, a Winnipeg AgTech company, which is in precision agriculture, just had a big round raised from Kleiner Perkins, which is a great validation of their technology. And Farm Lead out of Ottawa is basically the eBay for grains, and they had a big raise from Monsanto as well. So these are some examples. Any others to add on?
Canada Goose. Again, just kidding. That's funny. It had to take off in Hollywood and Europe before we caught on to our own winter jackets. One from my portfolio, I guess, is a company called, I forgot the name of the company, United Paragon Associates. It does a drug called Relidep, Ron Ellis depression. Ron Ellis is an ex-Maple Leaf hockey, if you guys know hockey. It just raised $50 million pre-phase 2. It's a biologic that's isolated from 7-day-old chick embryos. It's poised or thought to be able to treat all spectrum of depressive disorders, including severe depression, PTSD, Alzheimer's, and concussion-related depression, maybe even addiction, based on the way it works. So the complexity of this biologic is very interesting. Just to treat 15% of severe depression cases in the world alone will take 30 million eggs a day. So it's a huge opportunity for the ag sector, not just Canada. We can't produce enough. This will be anybody who produces eggs really well wants this drug to succeed. But ultimately, it's probably the newest drug in the depression-related field in the last 20 years. And again, it's still years to market, but I thought it was an enormous success to get 50 million from a local investor that's tied to Bayer, and hopefully we can get it to market soon.
Thank you. Any other examples?
Well, I could give another commercial success, a vaccine that addresses porcine circovirus has generated over $4 billion market value in the markets. Unfortunately, not commercialized by a startup or venture, but nevertheless, it's a big success, and
Absolutely.
It shows the innovation or the research strength of some of the universities.
Absolutely, thank you. And Selena from British Columbia or otherwise?
Sure, I'll mention one in particular, and that's a company called Semios. And Semios is a great example of what I was just talking about, in that he was actually working in the pharmaceutical field with pheromones and saw that those pheromones would have the same type of impact in the ag industry. So he started on a pest called, oh my gosh, which was it? I think it was I'm not going to think of it. It's not spotted winged Drosophila. It's the Coddling Moth, and that was in our Okanagan Valley and vineyards. And so he's been able to commercialize that tech, and he's in operations down in California here in cherry orchards and vineyards. So he's a big success story for Canada as a whole. And then another one of our companies, a guy called EIS Sauber, he is an emerging success story. And one of the great things is that I think he actually participated in the Canadian Technology Accelerator program that the Consul hosts. So that's two good examples of important pieces of the story, I think.
Absolutely, thank you. And one final point I'd like to just highlight is that we're well aware that a lot of AgTech has trouble piloting and testing, validating their technology. And so as mentioned, we have millions of acres open for piloting and testing in Canada with all kinds of wonderful weather. So please keep Canada in mind for even validating your technology. Thank you. Thank you very much.